the Elevated Look Show, hosted by Mark Stampfly.
It's great to have you here on the show. Welcome to the Elevated Look Show. Our tagline is entertainment, marketing, and everything in between. Because I think those are really two valuable things that my background is in, and a lot of the guests on the show can bring something to the table for. Because when I say marketing isn't necessarily just selling a product. Marketing is you like dressing yourself up and presenting yourself to the world every day. Like it's how you deliver something. So it's not necessarily just like, okay, I have this product that I'm trying to sell on the internet. Marketing is a part of everyday, life. And it can be for your own personal brand, it can be for your business, it can be for your product, service. So it's it's a broader thing. I want people to know that it's a broader thing than I think they think it is.
No,
oftentimes.
I appreciate that, and again, thanks for having me here. And I think that it's interesting that this is happening right now because I've been thinking about personal brand a lot lately.
Man, it's good to see you, dude. It's really good. It's really good to see you. It's been a long time. It's been a long time with a lot of people since the COVID, but dude, you're like. You're slim now, but you're still like a Viking, dude. Like, are you a Viking? Or do you have the? During the pandemic, I actually started watching that show and watched most of it. I'm like, like, do you have like Viking blood in you?
I think so. I mean, I'm a mutt like a lot of people in America. I think I'm just kind of a mishmash of things and people. But yeah, my mom's side is theoretically Danish. Or predominantly Danish, so that's probably where the look comes in from. And actually, it's funny you say that. This is all coming together at once because I feel like maybe that's my brand. I'm an American Viking.
That's great. That's actually really good. One thing I have been promoting, just from my own research in terms of like branding, yourself, your personal brand. Is making a TikTok, and I've slowly been developing that recently. Finally, like kind of practicing what I preach, and there's still a huge gap to bring in a brand there. And you could 100%, if you start on Monday and you start putting out content every day, you could 100% be the American Viking. You could, and dude, that could become a thing. I'm telling you, it's not a bad idea. And it doesn't mean it has to be the only thing you do, but just it's another avenue to get people aware of who you are and what you do. So that's really the key. Did you ever audition for the show Vikings? Like, you seem like you'd fit in pretty good then, or were you not so much into acting at that time?
I think when I first heard about it, being once a year a call, I think that was like right when I started acting, or maybe even before. But the other thing too is that show, is my understanding, is it always filmed in Ireland, and the one notice I saw said that you had to be be able to work as a local. So it would be interesting. But I entertained the idea. Screw it, I should fly to Ireland and just
kind of plug into the culture and
let's see what happens. Yeah. I do have an aunt who lives in Ireland, so maybe I should be like, hey, can I stay with you?
That's cool. That Ireland is, from what I recall, my sister's favorite place she's ever traveled to. And she's traveled quite a bit, and that's like her favorite, most beautiful spot that she's ever traveled to in the world.
I still haven't been there, so I'm gonna have to check it out. My sister also really enjoyed it. She went with her family a couple of years ago and really liked it. So,
well, I'm sure there's gonna be another Viking show. Do you have a TikTok?
No, I don't.
You should get.
I'm real bad at social media. I'm really bad at it, and it's hard because I hear what you're saying about branding, and I know I need to be better at it, and I don't like it. Is that okay to say?
No. I see 100% where you're coming from, because for me, same thing. I was never really into social media. I don't like the superficiality of where social media started, and this idea that like you're showing off your life, you're showing off like your relationship, whatever it may be, like to get validation and or to show off. Like, I don't like that side of it, but I think it really comes from your motivation. Like, if you come from motivation of like giving and like, okay, or even just for your friends and family, if you're posting pictures to share with people that you think they would like and like to see, there's nothing wrong with that. Or if you're posting content that is like valuable or like educational or entertaining people, like that is good. Like you're giving something kind of back to society. And I think there's different avenues through different social media platforms where you can do that now. But I definitely, there's a stigma behind, social media and like, especially how Facebook, kind of, we don't want to see, and every once in a while I'll probably post like, yes, I'm working out again, but we don't want to see your fitness routine all the time. We don't want to see, that you're at the gym today or that you woke up at 6 a.m. We don't necessarily want to see all that every day. Once in a while, sure. But I don't know. What, is that kind of what, is that your reasoning? Like kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I have a Instagram and a Facebook, and I pretty much the only times I post is when I'm on set, and I'll be like, oh yeah, the obligatory, because this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I feel like it's I don't even know if it's for anybody else. It's probably more for me to be a record log of like, oh, what are the things I've done? And every once in a while you're on a set where you don't do it. But
it's like
for the most part, like, all right, this is what I'm doing today, and just for work.
Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, I was gonna say like a visual diary. Almost.
Yeah, it's almost like that.
Yeah. There's something. Yeah. It's funny. I never really thought of it that way, but when I've gone back, like how you see like Facebook like reminding you of something you did like 8 years ago,
right.
and then you kind of think, oh, you know what? Let me go back, and you just kind of like start scrolling, and it's kind of cool that you did it, and you can see a little bit of a record, like, and then it seems like forever ago.
Yeah.
You start seeing all these pictures and things like the way I posted back in like 2010 is so completely different than how I'd post like in in the 20s now. Completely different. It's almost like it is a different person. It's crazy.
It is.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, well, especially if you have major life change, like career changes and different paradigm shifts in your life where you're looking at things differently. Completely agree. I mean, the only reason I had Facebook for a long time was because I'm from Pacific Northwest Washington, and it was like, oh, well, here's how I stay in contact with all of these folks back where I'm from. But now it's become a little bit of that business tool that I, am constantly sort of wrestling with, because I'm like, okay, well, I have to do this, but the visual diary point of view makes me feel a little bit better about it.
I wouldn't feel, here's the thing though, if you're feeling like you have to do it, I wouldn't do it. I would only do it.
Cut it all out.
Yeah, do it when you want to do it. Like if there's something that you think you're gonna share, and you have your motivation behind it is to share this something because you think it's valuable to something, you think it's cool, I think then it's worth sharing. But if you feel like I think your time could be better spent elsewhere. If you're really feeling like when you're posting, the content you're posting is like, I gotta post it. I don't know. I wouldn't post it. I wouldn't. It's just life is too short. I wouldn't waste my time with that.
No, that's interesting actually, and maybe that's the answer, because I'm half-assing it. It's like, Eric, be in or out.
Yeah.
Do it or don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and actually, I think the last thing I posted was I was compelled to do something non-film set related. I have some friends who they have the coolest COVID story as far as I'm concerned, where during COVID, they're also film industry people, but everything was shut down. So they started, their husband and wife couple, and they started smoking meat and started starting their own barbecue.
Oh.
And they were doing it out of their house, and then the next thing you knew, it grew and grew, and they had a smoker built and everything. And now it's like their small startup business is this really amazing barbecue in LA.
And they started on, they were promoting through social media?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah.
Like, did they have an audience already, or did they build that over the whole?
They're still building it.
They're
still doing it. And so that's a cool thing to see people pivot and go like, okay, well, we're gonna switch our passion maybe at least, or absorb add a passion. Right,
yeah.
Right. And then it to be really good. And that's something that Los Angeles, I find is sorely lacking is good barbecue. And it's actually
Have you ever been
good.
to J&J's in Culver City?
I don't know if I've been to most barbecue places.
That one's good,
in LA.
man.
Okay, I'll try that one.
Yeah.
I'll try it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's near my friend's studio down there where we used to shoot. And so during like lunch breaks, we'd walk across the street and go to J&J's, and
that's so dangerous.
It's pretty good.
It's dangerous to have across the street.
Their burger. So they have two things. So they have like J&J burgers, and then they have J&J barbecue, and it's like just literally like outdoor open fire picnic table, like very kind of like what do you call it, like southern? I don't know. what that setup's called, but yeah, all the barbecue. You're smelling meat. They're cooking everything, like chicken, beef, everything, like you name it, like you can get. And the burgers are really good. One of the top 10 burgers in LA for me.
Really?
Oh yeah, and I'm a huge burger aficionado.
Really?
Huge. Yep.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I will try it as and again I recommend Sharks Barbecue if I can promote them. That's my friends who started
that's the husband and wife team.
Yes.
So Sharks Barbecue. That's funny. Do they have is it sharksbarbecue.com or like where can we find them?
I think their Instagram is sharks.bbq. I think.
Sharks.bbq.
And then their Sharks BBQ on Facebook. But they're just getting going. So it's cool because they just rented a small storefront, so they can.
Oh, really? They're actually they're in a brick and mortar now.
Yeah, they're
wow.
They're doing it.
Where's it at?
I like Montecito Heights area. Yeah. Okay. So it's a little bit of a drive, but the way they're doing it is you can. It's worth it. You can do your they take orders during the week up until a certain point, and then you do pick up on Sunday because then he smokes all at once and.
That's awesome. They do just down a couple blocks from here. They do Persian barbecue.
Persian barbecue.
Persian barbecue.
I've
awesome.
never heard of Persian barbecue.
Are you a kebab guy?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Chicken, beef. And it's same thing. Like just a line of people outside. They have a few chairs, but you're just getting that aroma, and it's just fresh grilled food and beef, chicken, vegetables. It's really good. How did you get into acting?
So I multiple ways I got into acting. I was a young kid who was interested in imagination, of course, and I discovered Dungeons & Dragons far too young and loved creating within an environment with other people where you're playing pretend. But I also got into Shakespeare at a young age because
when you say young age, like what are we talking here?
Like 11, 12, I suppose. I was one of my best friends growing up. J.B. Van Lieshout, his mom Leslie Van Lieshout, and James Van Lieshout, the two of them, his parents, ran the local Shakespeare festival, and they really inspired kids to get in and start learning Shakespeare and get into that complicated language. So I was really into it, and then I left acting behind for years. I went to film school thinking like, oh, I want to tell stories and be behind the camera, which is still true, but I think I think I was afraid of the dream of acting in a way because I thought, it's one thing if you tell everyone that that you're moving to California and going to get into film in a sort of behind the camera sense because it sounds much more like a practical job that exists. But if you say acting, it's scary, and I think I denied that side for myself for so long.
So you thought how people were going to view you in terms of?
I think that was part of it, yeah, and also just myself, how I viewed myself, and not wanting to be in that position. I wanted to be in a position where I felt just more confident.
Yeah, it's scary because if you don't make it, and not everyone does, then you come back and you got to tell everybody you didn't make it.
Right.
But at least you try. At least I would say still do it because at least you tried. Better to have that, but to come back and say, yeah, I didn't do it. I wasn't good. Right. Than to say at the end of your life, oh man, what would I have done if I had just gone to California?
Exactly. I completely agree. But you do it, you try it. I came down here with that film degree and thinking I'm going to be behind the camera, and again, glad I did it, still like that stuff. But then when I was working on original productions where you and I met, Nathan Basil, who you interviewed earlier.
Our first guest.
Your first guest,
yeah.
Nathan.
He's a talented dude.
Nathan, I got to know him a bit, and he was like, hey, I'm teaching an acting class. And I think he kind of talked me into it.
Had you seen his movie?
No. I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
But what's funny is I have all these friends back home who are huge horror fans.
Yeah, because you're in that genre.
Well, I am now. I wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
And I was not a horror person before. And I have all these huge horror fans back home. And around Nathan's desk at work were all these things from the movie, from behind the
He has his own action figure.
He's got his own action figure. He's got all his stuff. And I think it was, after visiting the office which you shared with him at the time, visiting a few times, I'm like, oh, what is it? Oh, hey, I recognize this. I have friends who are nuts about this. Turns out he's leading it, But he started deciding he was going to, be an acting teacher.
Yeah.
And when he was starting that up, I was a little resistant, but then I thought, okay, maybe I'll take a class or whatever, especially because I think it's important and valuable if you think you're going to be a writer, director, to get to know actors and see how they're doing it. I'm like, let me see how it is on this side of the camera.
So at that point in time, you weren't really thinking much about your acting dream that you had as a kid.
No.
You were more thinking behind the camera stuff, but because you were still intrigued of like maybe utilizing that skill into the behind the camera activities.
That's it. And
so what
because
switched
of
for
that,
you?
Well, I took the class, and then I was working with Nathan, and that's when it was like, oh, this is what I have to do. Like this is life changing in a way where, I found it. I've been lying to myself this whole time. It's almost like a amnesiac.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my memories are back.
Moment.
Yeah, your eureka moment.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, oh, so I can.
Was it the first class you took with him, or did it take a little bit of was it a gradual period?
I don't know. It might have been a couple of classes, but I just know that,
it was pretty instant.
It was the thing, because I think it was, I can't remember if it was once a week or twice a week, but it became the thing where I was like, oh, this is what I look forward to every week easily. Like, I even would get out work a little bit early so I could run over to, down the street where he was teaching the class. So and he did the same. He got off work a little early so we could start teaching the class. And I just fell in love with it in such a way. So I wanted to make sure to give credit to Nathan Basil and also the Van Lee shouts, but all these folks who influenced me.
You've been acting for a while, and you've been successfully. It's hard. It's hard in LA to keep acting. It's hard in LA to keep getting work, and I feel like I always see you like seems like you're always doing something. We all have breaks, but especially during COVID. But you seem like you kept up very well.
Oh, thank you.
With that being said, what would you say? What advice would you give to somebody who's trying to get into acting during 2021? Like, what advice would you give to somebody who's entering the acting industry for 2021?
Don't do it.
Sure.
I would say.
Why not?
No, advice. I'll have to think a little bit about that to know what would be good advice. I think that patience is probably the biggest virtue, probably in any industry, but specifically in acting and entertainment, because it takes a lot of patience in trying different things. Acting, I think, is one of those sort of professions where there's not one path, like if you want to be a doctor, you have to go to medical school and all of these things. If you want to be an actor, there's a million ways to get there.
Sure.
So everybody's got a different way of going. And I think just being patient and trying a bunch of different things, trying to constantly learn, that sounds really cliche, but if you're someone who didn't go to college for acting or didn't get to a conservatory or something, that you should, try to hunt around and find acting classes to learn. And keep learning and keep being patient, because it's going to take a while before, it just takes time. I mean, I think
like anything does.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a good point, because a lot of people coming to LA, especially from other states, are like, this is Hollywood. I'm here. I'm going to make it. I'm going to get the gig, and then I'm going to be like a superstar. And dreams aren't handed out on a silver platter. That's not going to happen. So, like you said, it's hard and it takes time. Mm-hmm. Do you have the discipline? Do you have the drive to get to that dream?
Yeah, I think it's a dream that's tough enough that if you can do literally anything else, you should do that. If there is something in you that wants to do something else, do something else.
Absolutely.
Acting is one of those things where, and there's other things too, I think a lot of professions in the arts, where you do it if you're compelled to do it, if you can't help yourself
Absolutely.
to do it. If you find yourself thinking about it, obsessing about it, doing it in your off time or when you're lying in bed, that kind of a thing, that's when you know, like, okay, well, I got to do that. But if you're like, I think there's a lot of people who, I don't know how much in love with acting they are. They might be in love with fame.
The results. I was going to say, like, they're in love with the results from the acting and the fame and the stardom, what they see, the superficiality of a lot of it.
Yeah.
Which, there's nothing necessarily bad about some of that stuff. You can want that. I mean, some people like that, but if that's why you're doing it, you're not going to survive. I just don't think you
no.
will. Most people won't survive if that's like their only driving force, because it's just it's going to be too difficult. You're not gonna push through for that.
Yeah. I think so. When I've done a job and then it comes out, I'll watch it in the sense that I want to see how I can be better and improve. It was really hard at first to see myself in things.
Okay.
And now
are you the actor that watches themselves? Like some people don't watch.
Right.
Like I've done very little acting, but I've done a little bit. Sure. And I guess there are a couple things I haven't seen, but not because I was afraid to, just because I just didn't have time or didn't care enough. But I am the person that I kind of want to see because I want to learn. I want to it's the same thing. Like I used to early on when I was like kind of just getting into college. My sport was actually I was getting into racquetball.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I ever told you that.
Okay, I think I remember you talking about
and
racquetball.
Watching, occasionally I would actually record myself or watch others, and there was just something, you'd learn so much more in just watching tape of yourself and your game. And I feel the same, if I was like going 100% in professional acting, I would absolutely watch myself because I'd want to see the tape. I want to see, what did I do good, what did I do bad? You know, you wouldn't be worried about like, oh, that's how I sound. Like, I'm beyond that, you know. Right. But I know for some people that are super successful actors, I forget exactly who they are, but I know there's a couple like Oscar-winning actors who literally don't watch what they perform.
Well, and they're probably at the level where like they don't need to, because it's like, okay, I feel good about it. You know?
Yeah, the one take wonder.
Yeah, I think the only reason I watch it is because for that reason, to get feedback if I watch it. But there's so many things that I've done that I don't watch, because to me what's hard is you do something and sometimes there might be, press behind it, or there might be constant check-ins or social media or publicity around the project and all that stuff that you have to participate in, and that's fine. But for me, when I walk off of the set, my job's done. It's done, and it's in their hands. And I think what the enjoyment I get out of acting personally is I enjoy it in the moment while I'm doing it. It feels so good. It's so satisfying. And so to go back and rehash it or look at it and think about it doesn't do anything for me, because I'm like, I already did it. I did it. Well, unless I see something where I'm like, oh, I can learn from this and then I can do better next time. Like that's valid. But otherwise, I don't need to live in the revelry of that project, because it's done. I'm done.
You're not watching to say, "Hey, look what I did. I want to watch myself." Again. Ooh, I was good there.
Right. I don't get anything from that. And I think that that's how I knew, having done it, that I was like, oh, this is the thing for me, because I like it. It's in the moment, and it's funny because it's almost the opposite for writing. I find that sometimes writing is really not satisfying in the moment, but when you're done, you look back on it, you're like, okay, that's okay, it's coming together, it's happening. But in the moment, while you're doing it, it's like, this is tough.
It's work.
Yeah.
It's work.
The opposite.
The blank page syndrome. That's work. Yeah. But you got to do that if you want to be a writer. You have to live in that. So
you have to.
Another question, which kind of ties into the first question, which I think you can bring some value to, is what about the person who is in the entertainment industry? Like, what would you say? Are there any tips for staying in the entertainment industry? Because sometimes, like we were talking about before, it's hard to we get here, we might even get lucky, we might even get a break, we do something cool, but then what? What are some of the things maybe you've done that have kind of kept you going, or some things that that kind of keep you going and pursuing your dream in the acting industry?
I think that the biggest thing is that I don't just spend all that money when it shows up, because acting's one of those things where when you make money, it's like, okay, well, you don't know when you're going to make the money again. you don't know.
Absolutely.
So it's easy, I think, especially if you do a job where you're compensated well, it's easy to be like, I have money, I'm going to buy things. And it's like, no, pay down your credit card debt first, and then take that money and be financially smart. And maybe take some classes or some lessons. And I've been trying to educate myself financially to set myself up so that I'm making
That's great.
smart financial decisions.
That's very great. Money management is key. I think that's in a lot of industries, not even just acting, a lot of entertainment industries in general, because a lot of jobs, even the people who are working on set, a lot of those people, you can make a big chunk of money over 3 months, while the show's going, and then you have a break. Maybe you're working on, maybe you're getting to the next show or you're not, but how you manage that money is super important, super, super important. So that's a really good point.
Very important, and it's tough because famously acting is like everybody's a waiter, everybody's got these gig jobs because in order to chase the dream of acting, you've got to still keep that roof over your head, and you're like, well, what do I do? And I think it's easy to get locked into jobs that take too much time and they're hard to get out of, or you start doing this other thing, which I always say, don't have a hustle for your hustle, which is people will, like acting is a hustle because you have to be after it. You have to be like constantly applying. I mean, your agent will be submitting you for auditions, but you are probably going to be self-submitting as well, and you're just constantly doing auditions and all of these things. And I think that it's because that's a hustle. If you have something else that's supporting you, that's paying the bills in the meantime,
absolutely,
it's got to be something that's not too
similar.
Yeah.
You think it should be a more so you'd rather, so for like an actor who is, say, like a production assistant, you think that maybe it's better to have a better paying job in a different industry, or do you think you can be the production assistant and also be pursuing acting as well?
I think you can do that, and it's wise to do something behind the camera. I think so you can learn more. You can get a fuller knowledge of.
See,
the whole
I was doing the
industry,
opposite when I first started. I was getting my little foray into acting early on was the opposite, where I never really wanted to be an actor, but I always wanted to work in the entertainment industry. And so what I would do is I would get plugged in through like the background acting agencies and applying to casting calls so I could get on set to learn about like the actual production process.
I don't want to be here. I want to be there where you guys are on the other side of the camera.
That's how it was. So it was kind of like the reverse of maybe what a lot of people are doing.
No, I mean, again, there's no. I think all of the. I said acting, but a lot of these entertainment industry jobs, they're very circuitous routes. Everybody's got a different story for how they got into it. So I think that's totally makes sense.
How did you get into it? I mean, I know, because where we met at Original Productions. We met in entertainment. We met in TV.
Right.
But you were doing behind the camera stuff. You were in more in the producing department.
Yeah, no, and so I went to film school. I did that, and
What film school did you go to?
I went to Evergreen State College up in the Pacific Northwest, which is a liberal arts college in Olympia, Washington, my hometown. Okay. And go Gooey Ducks. That is their mascot.
What are they called?
Gooey Ducks.
Gooey Ducks?
A Gooey Duck is like
What's a gooey duck?
It's a large clam.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's not an actual duck. Okay, interesting.
No, it's a native word.
So you guys, when you're
Salish,
getting on the court, you're like they're cheerleading for the clams.
Well, they're like it's a liberal arts college, much like Santa Cruz with the banana slugs, by the way, Santa Cruz. So it's a similar thing, and I will say the mascot, at least last time I looked, the cartoon mascot's very phallic.
That is the strangest mascot I've ever heard.
It's odd. I mean, it's got a shell and a long neck that comes out.
Oh, okay. Put a little fear into their hearts.
Yeah, exactly. They'll shoot you in the eye with their water. They squirt water at you.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, I'm not making that up. That sounds dirty.
No.
They get them in the sand,
Do they have the spray bottles when when the mascot's on the court?
That's a good question.
It seems like a good marketing technique.
Yeah, they're probably spraying.
He should
all
be
the
on
fans.
TikTok too.
Yeah, he should. They probably are. They probably have 1 million followers.
I mean, you probably would get it pretty good.
Yeah, right.
I watched your what is it, Melvin and the Microphone.
Oh,
that was really cool.
Thank you.
I know you guys did like the festival circuit with that, and you got some awards, which is great.
I worked with this wonderful writer and director, Chris Youngless, and Chris is super talented writer-director. And what was interesting about that was I auditioned for it. It was just a normal sort of, you do an audition, you do the thing. What it turned out was there's this band, this metal band called Amon Amarth, and Amon Amarth is, they're like hardcore Viking metal, you know. There's like,
That's awesome.
It's a good gym playlist music, you know. They're great. But the lead singer of that band was originally going to be Melvin, the main character in this movie, and I guess he had to drop out due to touring schedule. But they still lent some of their images and T-shirts and some of the music to the project. And they were recasting, and they were looking for someone, and I got cast in it. And it was great because I think me
How
and
did you get cast for it? Did you like find a random casting call? Did you have an agent book it for you?
No agent. I don't know if I had one at the time, but it was like a lot of us actors, we get cast because we have our agents, but we also belong to these casting websites where you sort of apply yourself to these projects. And I think that's how I found it. And I did a self-tape, which is more and more common. Instead of going in person, you might do a self-tape, which is you just tape yourself doing the audition. A lot of times people use it as a first round, and then they'll do an in-person callback. This
Absolutely.
is before COVID, but it's coming
Even
back.
during COVID.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, during COVID, it was all tapes, and now we're starting to get back to in-person a little bit. But, I did it, and it was one of those roles. Every once in a while you get an audition where you're like, oh, I want this. And it was cool because this was one of them. And then Chris and I clicked so well. And we had a couple of meetings beforehand. And, I know that we talked and started riffing, and that would influence pieces of the script. But he already had this fleshed out, wonderful script.
Now, was that through, I know you do a lot of monster acting.
I do.
Which is cool. You got the frame for it.
Oh, thank
But you're good too. Like even our small little four-way when we did our project, I could tell you had something, which was good. You have a very good, when you're playing low key, you have a very good natural acting ability.
Oh,
very
thank you.
good.
Thank you.
But so the Melvin and the microphone, was that through, I know you're working with Crypt TV. I know you've done a lot of monster movies. You do a lot of monster acting. I know you've worked with Crypt TV. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that is and what they're doing? I actually saw that Crypt TV, your post, you posted that, I think it was Kristen Ritter, right?
Yeah.
She personally bought a property from Crypt TV and is going to do it? Or?
Yeah, I don't know the full details, but
Okay.
Crypt, they've been a YouTube content channel, and they do these horror projects, and I've done. I was the Brute in a project called the Door in the Woods, and then the sequel, which was The Girl in the Woods.
Oh, now, are these feature films or are these shorts?
They're YouTube. I think they might. I'm not sure how they classify them, but to me they're like shorts probably.
Like
they're
15 minutes?
Yeah, they're like 15, 20 minute in length,
Okay.
And sometimes they'll do a couple different parts. So for Girl in the Woods was a self-contained, Door in the Woods was self-contained, and then they did the sequel, Girl in the Woods, and we did that with, Cal Penn was in it. Crypt announced that they're going to be taking the property, and with Kristen Ritter, I guess, is involved to direct a few of these episodes.
Oh, very cool.
For Peacock, it's going to be a
NBC's
thing. Yeah.
Streaming, yeah.
So that's cool. I'm not a part of that, but that's.
Will you maybe
doing,
be?
Not as far as I know.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
That's and that's okay.
Yeah.
They're doing stuff, so good for Crypt.
Either
for
way, it gives
doing
you guys more attention because...
It's great. I just people are doing things, making things. People are leveling up and going to other platforms and things. That's exciting.
So how does Crypt TV work? Are they putting out a certain amount of like these mini, these horror film shorts every month, or how does that whole process work? I'm very curious. I literally am very curious.
No, even though they're a YouTube channel, they're very professional in how they do it. They have regular casting calls. Of course, they hire people, they hire actors, they hire a whole crew, and they shoot it. It shoots like a movie, and it just so happens to be going to YouTube. So, and I've had a great time working with them before.
Are they they have such a huge audience that they're able to fund these projects, or how is that playing out? I don't understand.
I'm on this side of it, so I don't know. I presume it's through like advertising revenue on YouTube.
So they have enough subscribers to...
They have a lot of eyes on it.
No, I'm curious because I think the level that they're going for is, like you said, is like at least independent movie making.
I mean, I think that's the exciting part is this company, and they're just an example of other companies doing it, where there's some really professional content happening on YouTube. And it's insane to me that we're at the level where you can go show up to set and you wouldn't know you're not on a feature because it's professional, the money behind it, it's like, it's people are doing things fully like they would on a normal film set. It just so happens that the platform is YouTube, which is still kind of crazy to think that it's not a television station.
Yeah, for that kind of programming, because I mean YouTube is legit now. Obviously,
Yeah.
like I have friends, I know people that literally make 6 figures a year on YouTube. It's crazy.
It's nuts.
But they're not necessarily. Like us coming from I guess now I am here.
Now you're here.
I got pulled in. But honestly, this is more for my own creativity and passion. This
Sure.
wasn't because I wanted to make money on YouTube. But it's interesting because a lot of, like TV and film professionals who are, doing things, they probably thought lower of YouTube, whereas now it's a really good platform for doing different things and doing things on an independent scale. Doing things differently. Because the networks, it's a different time. It's just a different time. Like a lot of the networks, I think what was it? I read some article today. I don't know if it was one of the main ABC, NBC or something. They like just canceled. They had just launched a bunch of shows and already 5 of them are gone. And it's like that's the sign of the time. It's like it's hard to put a show on ABC, unless it's a huge brand or something that's been going on for a while, like like a detective show or something like that.
Right.
Law and Order, it's tough to bring a new property to like ABC or NBC. Like it used to be a lot easier. Where now is, you can bring something to the people.
Right.
And I think that's cool. And you can really, it's tough. It's tough because it's oversaturated. That's the problem with the.
It is, but I think also the difference is, again, this is just my rudimentary knowledge of everything and my time as a producer before acting is, my thought on that is it's a demographic thing. So people who watch television predominantly are an older demographic. And I think that most of the idea of the cord cutter phenomenon that we talk about, where millennials and so that's like our generation is like I personally don't have television, but I have Netflix and HBO Max and the streaming services or whatever.
So do you think that cord cutter is maybe an archaic term? Like maybe it's not so much cord cutting, it's not just plugging into the system. So like the older generation still has a cords, but as we're moving away from that, there's no new cords getting plugged in.
That's actually a really good point. I think 5-6 years ago, cord cutter was probably appropriate, but now it's like, no one's even just plugging in at all, maybe. I mean, again, I'm not an expert on this side of it necessarily. It's just my speculation that I think it's a demographic thing. Because also my understanding is Crypt TV's demographic, I think, skews young, to more maybe teenagers or young adults and stuff like that.
Okay.
Versus some other content that might be aged up.
One thing that you had mentioned to me earlier was you said that you kind of, doing so many monster movies, it's a lot of movement acting. Can you kind of describe that and kind of tell me, I'm kind of interested in like the psychology and like motivation behind that.
Yeah. So, I primarily see myself as an actor, and that means primarily I like to be acting, talking, face,
saying things.
Yeah, saying things, all that. But what has been interesting is I really love voiceover, which I'm trying to do more of. I really love voiceover. And I really do enjoy the monster movement stuff. And to me, it's almost like you're breaking down something into its parts. So I hope to be a better actor because I get this experience doing movement, and I hope to be a better actor because you get experience doing voice, and then you can combine the two and just be a better actor. But when you're doing the movement acting or the monster acting, for the most part, you might be making noises and things, and even if they don't mic me up, I make noises usually just because I'm weird, right?
Do they mic you in the suit?
And it depends. It depends on the gig. If they want you to actually have lines and stuff, they do, otherwise they don't. But they might get wild sound. I've done a couple monsters where I know that they got like boom audio and they took my voice and then they just distorted it and made it more monstery and stuff. But the mindset's got to be that you have to tell a story and convey a character through movement alone because you don't have any lines to tell your story.
Okay.
So it's got to be like, when I get a role for a creature, I want to ask the people I ask is, of course, the director if you can, if not the writer, and the special effects person is huge for monster effects because the special effects
in terms of
person,
communicating with them beforehand.
yeah, and also on set. So when you're a monster, your special effects might be one person, but sometimes it's 2 or 3, and I liken it to being a race car driver with a pit crew. I always think of that because almost like between every take, those special effects people are usually coming and checking the costume and fixing things up and slathering more goop on you if you're a goopy monster or just like making sure things are attached. And it feels like a pit crew, and there's so many of these monsters where, for instance, during lunchtime, you might not be able to feed yourself because you're not getting all out of the suit. So they might have to help you eat, stuff like that. Or even
has it happened to you?
Yeah. And I was resistant because you don't want to be the prima donna actor, and you want to be going over and you're trying to open a bottle of water with your claw hands, and they're like, "Please stop. Let me just do that for you." And
they like literally putting it in your mouth?
Yeah, literally like a gerbil or something. I've had that happen, and you have to. Again, you don't want to be like this prima donna who can't do it, but you also want to respect that a lot of times the special effects people are like, please don't try to do that because you're gonna
give them more work.
More.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's just let us take care of you a little bit. So it's like a communication constantly with your pit crew and them. But when you're
do you ever go method and just go full like you don't even talk? You just go full grunts and monster sounds?
Sure. No. I think. If I did that, I would be asked not to come back to set. I think that could be difficult. He's not talking to us. He's making noises at us. We don't like working with him because he doesn't talk. He's very method.
What would you say is what if there's like a kid out there, like some 9, 10-year-old or whatever age, and they're like, I want to be a monster movie actor? Like, what makes a good monster movie actor?
Follow your dreams, kids. You can do it. I think just getting experience in movement in general is really key. So I don't have a cool, fancy background in dance, or I don't have a cool, fancy background in martial arts, at least not to speak of. I have a little bit, but nothing huge. But the more movement you can learn, the better. So if you can learn dance, if you can learn martial arts again, if you can do these things, there's classes you can take too, to just always be conscientious of your body and trying to explore its movements. And you don't have to be the world's best anything in order to do it. You just have to be like constantly trying to practice your body awareness and developing it.
That's a good point. That's really good. I'm not sure this question will lead anywhere, but I thought I'd ask it.
Sure.
Do you have any like real life monster stories?
Real life monster stories. I think the closest I have to a real life monster story is probably the reason I got into acting. There's many reasons, but when I was little, I was weirdly obsessed with Swamp Thing, and Swamp Thing is a DC Comics character that for a weird moment in the late 80s, early 90s, all of a sudden became this IP that they tried to push on the public. So there was like a 5-episode animated cartoon, again, only 5 episodes. There was a toy line connected to it. There was a sequel to there was a sequel, and there was an original like Wes Craven movie in 1981, but then a sequel in 1989 with Heather Locklear, and there was a live-action TV show on the USA Network that ran for like 3 seasons.
Had a lot going on with Swamp Thing early on.
Weird, but only for a couple years, and it didn't really catch on, and then it went away.
I never really got. I've always kind of been a little bit into comic books, but I never really got into Swamp Thing. I just never really could. I could never connect. And I heard, I believe Frank Miller, right? He wrote like the penultimate like.
Alan Moore.
Okay, my bad.
No,
Alan Moore wrote like the penultimate Swamp Thing story, but
so good.
I don't know. I just couldn't. I don't know. I just maybe just not my thing.
So I was sucked into I was a kid and sucked into the cartoon and the toys and that type of stuff. It wasn't until I was a little bit older that I
What was the Swamp Thing toy line like?
weird. You had these monsters, these monster.
But how many?
characters.
So there's more than just Swamp Thing. It's like multiple Swamp toys.
Yeah, the cartoon, because there's such a tie-in between merchandising toys and cartoons. So the cartoon was clearly fueling the toy line, and they give Swamp Thing a couple of buddies, sidekicks, sort of a thing.
Okay, who were his buddies?
Okay, it was Bayou Jack, I think, and Tomahawk, and I believe. Tomahawk.
I might not make it today.
I don't know. I mean, there's some interesting, because it was like they were sort of progressive in the sense that his buddies weren't white guys, so that was cool.
Okay.
But I don't know if you get away with naming a character Tomahawk now, who's a Native American.
Do you still have
character.
these toys?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I do.
That's actually really cool. I envy that. I envy that.
I gotta dig them up. I mean, they're in Washington in storage, kind of a thing. But
so you're sure your family hasn't thrown them out or anything?
Pretty sure. I hope so.
Okay.
I'll be sad. Yeah. I mean, I was weird, and I was into Swamp. I was probably the one kid into it. And then when I got a little bit older, I'm a huge comic book fan. Huge. And I'm not necessarily a comic book movie fan, but I'm a huge comic book fan. And I got into the Alan Moore comics, and it's just like the idea of this monster that has a lot of pathos and things because he's got feelings and originally he was a man turned into a monster, and then there's revelations that maybe he wasn't. But either way, that idea really appealed to me, and that was one of the things that was like, yeah, I want to be. I didn't want to be an actor. I wanted to be Swamp Thing. It was very specific. I was like,
so is Swamp Thing your superhero in a way?
Yeah, I was like, okay, so this is all I got to do. I got to become a chemist or a biochemist. So I was like, all right, I'll pursue chemistry, and then I got to move out to Louisiana in the swamps, and then I just got to get into a major chemical accident that will turn me into a swamp creature. That's all I got to do, and not die in the explosion, but get turned into the creature. So that was
my
my
bad plan as a kid.
Yeah, it was a life goal. Either that or be MacGyver. I was 5. I was indecisive. Yeah.
I know you work in comics now too. Comics and graphic novels, right?
Yeah.
So, which is really cool. Again, I'm not as deeply plugged in. Like, I'm not. I love comics, but I wouldn't say I'm like the comic book nerd.
Sure.
But I do. I appreciate them. I buy them. I buy them. I used to buy them because I like to read them. Now I kind of buy them because I think they're a good investment.
Gotcha.
But I actually still read some comics. What did I buy? I bought a series called, which I think is going to be a movie for sure. If somebody hasn't got the property yet, they should. It's called Billionaire Island.
Billionaire Island.
And yes, phenomenal concept. Go check it out, Billionaire Island.
I'll check it out. Yeah.
It's like a limited series, like 6 comics or something like that. And that one I bought because I wanted to not just for, it was a little bit investing because I'm like, oh, they'll probably make a movie on this, but at the same time, I'm just like, I got to read this whole thing. So I buy it for that, but as a kid, I would just buy them just to read them. And I know you're a big comic book guy, and now you do some. Is it your friend has a independent comic line? Like, what do you do? Like, what is Eric doing in the comic book world and or do you call it graphic novel world? Like, what do you call it?
I call it a comic book. The only time I find it's appropriate to call it a graphic novel, I think, is if it's like a self-contained sort of like, this is the story. It's not an ongoing series. Otherwise, it's a comic book. And I think the term graphic novel came about to try to legitimize comic books. I'm like, no, just call it comic. It's fine. It's a comic book. But I love the medium of comics. So I like to write, and if it's not a screenplay, I like to write comics because I think it's interesting. It's similar but different. And the thing that a comic does that film can't do is you can see everything at once. So it breaks the barrier of time. So when we watch a film, right, we see it's words and pictures that are moving. And if we want to see something again, we can rewind. And if we want to see something further ahead, we can go forward. But in a comic book, besides turning pages, on a page, you can look and you can break time by seeing multiple activities at once. So you read it in a sequential order, but you can also get deeper meaning just on the surface of the page. And that's fascinating to me. What I'm doing with it is I'm working with a company called Echelon Graphic Novels. So it's called graphic novels.
Okay. But are they just doing like contained things, or are they doing like individual issues first and then combining them?
Yeah, kind of both.
Okay.
Yeah. they're doing everything. They're telling multiple stories, and Echelon Graphic Novels is really cool because not only is it an independent, this independent venture, it's also trying to be a platform for folks who normally wouldn't necessarily get into comics. So comics, like so many industries, are predominantly straight white male dominated.
Sure.
And Echelon Graphics Novels is trying to give a place for creators also who don't identify as those things. So,
very cool.
Try
That's
to break
awesome.
out of that. So you've got a lot of voices for folks who are different ethnicities, different sexualities, different genders, and stuff like that. So there's really good stories being told, and I'm writing stuff, but I'm also, I guess my title is story consultant or editor, so I'm editing the issues that are coming out, and it's really fun and enjoyable to look at a script and go, okay, cool. How can we make this better? It's almost like being a producer in television where you're like, what can we do to really refine this and make it the best product it can be?
Okay. And now, are these comics available in comic book stores, or do we have to go online? Like, how do we buy these?
Yeah, I think echelongraphicnovels.com is probably the best place,
That's
but
the
they
best
are
hub.
starting to be in stores. And
Okay.
my friend Ethan Murphy, who's the head of the company who's running it, it's his baby.
Okay.
He is starting to do more signings in stores and stuff like this. So it's growing. It's growing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really cool.
Well, then my next question is, what is your favorite comic book of all time?
Oh, Mark.
I got to give you the
dare
hard
you.
questions. I can't. It can't be a good show without the hard questions.
That's like, who's your favorite actor? It's like, well, it changes, right?
Well, currently,
Ooh.
what's your current favorite comic book of all time?
Current favorite comic book of all time. It's usually the current comic I'm reading, so it changes. I right now am reading, it just got turned into a Netflix show actually. I haven't seen the show, but I'm enjoying the comic because I like the artist and the writer. It's Jupiter's Legacy, yeah. The comic is really great.
Mark Miller, right?
It's Mark Miller and the
Netflix
artist
bought,
is,
I believe, his whole universe, right? That's what I
could be.
heard. I
don't know.
heard Netflix bought Mark Miller's entire comic universe, and
That-
they're doing
that
different
could be.
properties. I believe this is the first one.
That's cool. It's a great comic. I don't, necessarily love everything he writes, Mark Miller, but he's also written some great stuff, and this is great. And the artist, I never know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but his name is Frank Quietly, and his art is phenomenal. And I love not just the art, but I love how he lays things out. That's so big, is not just your individual style as an artist, but the layout and how you depict a story.
So you're doing, I don't know how much you could say, but I
Sure.
know you're working, I'm curious to hear what you're up to now.
Okay.
And I know you said you're doing motion capture acting. So I'm kind of curious to hear a little bit about the motion capture
Sure.
acting, and also, anything you could tell, like, just anything you're excited that you can tell us about.
Oh, I love it. So I'm privileged to be part of a project right now, which is going to be, I have to be careful what I say.
Yeah.
But I'm working with a really wonderful director. I'm not sure I can even say who it is, but it's a really wonderful director who's done some great stuff. And it's a television show for Netflix. And so I'm employed for a while, which is wonderful. It is a dream scenario because I am working on a regular gig. It shoots every other week, which is kind of perfect because then you can do life things in the in-between weeks.
Yeah. Why are they doing it? Why are they shooting every other week?
So this is a show that is, we're getting mocapped, and because we're getting mocapped in the show, it's not like other mocap projects, is my understanding. And this is my first mocap.
I talked to you a little bit earlier about this, and because I've been developing kind of some of my own stuff in the background, some projects, and it was sounding a little familiar to kind of what I was thinking about. I know these guys are actually like executing at a very high level too. Or what my friend was doing. My friend has a feature film doing kind of a similar idea. So I'm not sure how that process plays out exactly in terms of like the actual like workload of how it translates. Like you're filming 1 week and then they're doing their post-process in a week and then moving to the next?
That's my understanding. So they are, the in-between weeks, they're working hard to make sure that they, my understanding is like build the assets too and things like that. I say assets, and I realize it doesn't translate to everybody. So they have to build the environments and the things that we're playing in, because when you do mocap, you're wearing like pajamas with balls all over it looks like, and that's the motion sensors that get translated into a computer. But when you look at the monitors, you see the real life monitors, so you see the stage, but then you also see what it looks like inside the world.
Like a previs, right?
Yeah, it's like a previs. So you're seeing the world, so you see the environment, so you see the, like all of a sudden we're in a city, and then we're in Antarctica or whatever, and they have to build those things. And then obviously the characters that we play have to be built up and stuff like that. The main characters are constant, but then every episode has different characters, and they have to kind of build those things. So they work on that stuff in between. It's a wonderful job, and I'm working with wonderful people.
As an actor, entertainment professional, how do you brand yourself these days? Like, what are the ways that you go about promoting Eric?
I mean, that's what I got to get better at. My struggle with social media is it seems like it's such a distraction, because really, it's all things you need to work on. But my number one is I want to be a good actor. I want to be a better actor. I want to be good at it. And that's my concern more than, hey, look at me. It's more, no, let me be good at this craft. But in order to get the opportunities and do it more often, that brand helps. So both of those things you need to work on. Work on that brand, work on the craft. They go together, and then when they work together. So how? I don't know. I'm figuring it out. I think, I got my 5 social media followers or whatever I have, and trying to be more thoughtful about posting and working with social media. Like I said, this conversation has definitely made me go like, all right, maybe I'll try TikTok.
That's great.
Try it out a little bit. I think, but even if I get into social media, I never want to lose sight of the fact that I want to be good at what I'm actually doing.
Yeah.
So something that happens sometimes is I've been on set with people who are social media folks who they got the job because of their social media. I never personally apply to the jobs where like, and tell us about your followers, or because we're seeing that more and more now. And I don't apply to those because I don't have that, and I don't want to get it that way. But I'll be on set with someone who got a job that way, and then the next thing you know, they're like, hey, how do I act? They're like asking like, hey, real quick, how do we do this? And it's like, why are you here if you don't know how to do that? That's baffling to me. But at the same time, what they do is baffling to me, because I don't know what it's like to have 1 million followers or whatever. So I think that, I don't know if I answered your question really, but the answer is I'm trying to work on everything. Just try to get better.
Well, I think a good point you make is like, you still want to grow in the world that, whatever you do, like you can be an actor, you can be a chef, you can be a pastor, you could be anything, but that doesn't mean that social media doesn't have a place for you.
Right.
You might be able to, reach such a bigger audience and expose your passions and creativity to a world that you didn't think you had. And so I think and not everyone has to do it. Some people just don't want to do it, and that's totally fine. But at least to educate yourself so you know what it is and what the potential is.
Yeah.
That is...
It's like anything.
Important.
You need to learn enough to do it yourself.
Yeah, or to make a decision.
Until you're successful enough to pay someone else to do it for you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really trying to get to.
Sure.
I'm just trying to get to where I can pay someone else to do my social media for me.
What advice would Eric of 2021 give to his younger self? And this could be very general. It doesn't have to necessarily be in entertainment, but what advice would Eric of 2021 give to the younger Eric just learning and growing in the world?
Well, I think it would go along with the previous questions. It would be, I would tell myself to relax and to don't worry about being perfect. I think that's very appropriate, that question you asked earlier, because that is something that's hard to get over. And I know when I was younger, I definitely was always working on that part, and it's like, don't be perfect. You can't get fit if you don't go to the gym and go through the pain of feeling like you're doing it wrong and being self-conscious in the gym. I mean, I lost quite a bit of weight in the last couple of years because it's just like, look, you can't go there and worry about the perfection. You just got to go and start working and doing. Just start doing stuff. Start doing it. Pause and reflect. Read, learn, but start doing. That's the most important thing. Look, you could die tomorrow. I could die on the way home after this. Anybody could die. And that's been more clear to me now than ever before, that life is short, and so don't waste time thinking about what you're going to do. Just start doing stuff. That's it.
It's great.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks for watching the Elevated Look Show, and we would really, really appreciate if you leave a review and subscribe.